against the Rams in a must-win situation. I am so glad that is not the case. Now both teams talking about, potentially resting some guys or at least not playing the full game. So both teams kind of going to be going into it like a preseason game. And I think that too is best case scenario for the 49ers. But I'm obviously happy how this weekend turned out.
Definitely. Before we get into that, I felt like it would be smart coming off that Commanders game to give a little bit of an injury update. Going into that game, I felt like what was most important was that the 49ers didn't suffer any major injuries. And scarily enough, Christian McCaffrey did go out of the game. Now, I think if it was up to him, he would have came back out. But luckily now they have 3 weeks rest for him. He has a calf strain for anyone who hasn't heard. Now, the reason that, in my opinion, is concerning is because even though it was said as like a mild calf strain, that's connected to the Achilles. I live out in the Bay Area. I remember when Kevin Durant had a mild calf strain and then ruptured his Achilles. So definitely a little bit scary, but looks like, and if you remember last week, not against the Commanders, but the week before that, Christian McCaffrey went out and it looked like he was like putting his knee back together. So I just think rest is going to be really helpful for all of these guys, especially the guys like Christian McCaffrey who don't want to go out of the game unless they are forced to. And it feels like in this organization, Christian McCaffrey might call his own shots there. So not that we're grateful for an injury, but we're grateful for, basically 2 bye weeks. So Christian McCaffrey has that calf strain. He'll get to rest that. Ambry Thomas had surgery on his hand. Now he was playing with a club on his hand in the last game. I think he gave up one pretty brutal pass if I can remember. But aside from that, he's talk about like one of the most improved players on the team. He's done fantastic. And Kyle Shanahan in his press conference seemed to have like no concerns that he would be able to come back in that Rams game if he needed to, if they end up playing their starters for some amount of time there. So it doesn't seem like a big deal. Now, it does sound like he'll be playing with that cast on, but maybe by the time the playoffs come, or at least the Super Bowl, it might be off. So that's an update on Ambry Thomas. That corner position, kind of scary. Jair Brown will have an extra couple of weeks to heal that MCL strain that he had. And then Raver McLeod can return to practice this week, so that's really good. Yeah, so that. Oh, also we need to pay attention to Juwan Jennings because he's still in the concussion protocol. I'm like so worried about him because he hasn't even been at practice, which is like step 3 of the 5-step protocol. So I really hope he's doing okay, just like brain wise, body. Like I feel like we get so accustomed to kind of, oh, they have an MCL strain, they're going to rough through it. But when it comes to concussions, that's a little bit more scary, especially with someone like Juwan, who I can say, like, I feel like if it was an MCL, he would tough through it. Like he's a really hard-nosed player. So, in my opinion, I think if it was something he could push through, he would, which makes me feel like it's pretty serious. And I'm really glad that the NFL has more protocols around that to not let guys kind of push through that. Additionally, there's the Eric Armstead. He still is suffering with that plantar fasciitis. Are you anticipating that he'll push through when the playoffs come, or do you think maybe they'll have him wait for the Super Bowl? Kind of up in the air, just depending on how he feels that week. How are you feeling about the loss of him on this defense?
I think the plan was to shut him down for the rest of the regular season and then, come playoff time, see how he's feeling. But I would assume he would want to push through that. I mean, this type of injury, what he's dealing with, it's very painful, but it's mostly just pain tolerance, right? There are some things that, football players can do to, lighten up the pain a little bit. Adrenaline, I'm sure, does help, but after that wears off, you get into that pain again. So I think having the number 1 seed for the 49ers helps Eric Armstead a lot. There's less pressure. for him to be back until the divisional round, of course. And then you have 2 games, and then, you know, if you win those 2 games, you go to the Super Bowl. So if he can just tough it out for 3 games, 2 to 3 games, like, I think that's a situation that they're kind of expecting for Eric. But going back to Juwan Jennings, yeah, I think it's an interesting one, because I think we've even grown accustomed to concussions being like, okay, it's a concussion, he's gonna miss a week. But like anytime it goes further than that, it's like, whoa, like
When
that's not right.
he was first out, the first game that he missed, it was going to be a Monday because it was the Christmas game. And I remember in the beginning of the week being like, oh, like there's probably a chance he can go because like there's an extra day. And we're so like that happened with Brock Purdy earlier on in the week
Right.
when it was
Yeah.
an extra day because I think it was a Monday game for the week that Brock Purdy was going into the protocol too. And the same thing happened with him. He was able to play. So you're right. When it's extra like that. I don't know if you've ever had a concussion before. I've had one in my lifetime, or at least one that like was bad enough for me to really notice. And it bothered me it seriously bothered me for 2 weeks. But I want to say like a month later, I could not go. I like had to go. My mom goes to like an old person gym, and I go to like a loud one where they're like blasting music. It's like more CrossFitty, and it's like really loud and bright. I could not go to
Mhm.
like a month later, my head would still just be like, it was crazy. It was
Yeah.
so, and obviously that has, nothing compared to like getting hit by a 300-pound man. So I really hope he's good. Michael Mandela, or yeah, Mandia, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, said, is there any worry or rumblings that Eric Armstead will be shut down for the playoffs too? Like Steph said, it's kind of a pain tolerance thing, but I depending on how the D line does in his absence, I imagine that I think it'll be a week to week thing. I think that they're not even going to try until the playoffs, and then they'll probably push him in practice the week before the first playoff game to really test to see maybe what he'd be capable of. I'm sure that they'll probably, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but like they'll probably give him like Toradol or whatever, and see maybe if he can push through. And it might be one of those things where he goes out for a series, test it out. If he can push through, I think he will. If not, then they might end up taking him off. Yeah, I don't know. Last year with that injury, he missed 8 games.
I
So
thought it was 6. Yeah, 8. Okay.
it
And
was,
so we're getting to that
let's sorry,
point,
it was
right?
8
Where
weeks because
it's
he missed 1 week, tried again the next week, ended up leaving that game, and then
gotcha. Yeah.
he missed like 6 consecutive, but one of them was a bye week.
Yes. You're
So
right. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So in calendar time, it was like 8 weeks pretty much that he missed. Yeah. And that's good to kind of keep in the back of our minds, because similar situation, I think it's going to be around that 6-week mark if he comes back for the divisional round.
Which is really nice that when we talk about the bye week. And really quickly, I normally don't do this, but I did want to shout out a bunch of Victor. I originally had the stream for yesterday, but my computer, I'm so dumb. I thought my camera wasn't working, and I like restarted it a bunch of times and like did a bunch of things. There's literally like a physical lever. I drove my computer down to Best Buy, and the guy at Gates World looked at me like, you are a moron. He just like moved it over, and he was like, here you go. And I was like, sick. I'm flying to New York, and I'm moving states now after this. That's how embarrassed I am. But so Victor said, what's up? Ty said, what's up, faithful? Hey, Ash and Steph. There was just a lot of people in the comments that were saying Happy New Year. And hey, Anthony said that he appreciated us. Happy New Year, Bang Bang Niner Gang. Just with the new year, I just wanted to give appreciation for everyone saying hi. But yeah, so injury-wise, is there anyone that you're concerned about when it comes to the playoffs? And then this also might lead us into the rust versus rest debate and Deebo Samuel's comments on the Kay Adams show, because I do think he gave some insight into maybe Kyle Shanahan's plan. But if you were Kyle Shanahan, would there be anyone that you were really gonna hold out altogether, not playing any snaps?
I think, yeah, obviously the guys who are injured, so Christian McCaffrey, Jair Brown, also Ambry Thomas, those guys I would keep out of this game, of course, and obviously Eric Armstead, and maybe even Juwan Jennings. I don't know, maybe. Although if Ayuk or Debo Samuel doesn't play the full game, you might want Juwan Jennings in there. I don't know, but anyway, I would say Trent is one of those guys that I would definitely, maybe keep out. Possibly
And the
Nick
thing with
Bosa.
Jennings is he's already missed some time. So, like,
Yeah,
does that rust
exactly.
debate go further with him or no?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Here's how I look at the rust versus rest debate. Who are players who I trust that you're going to have 2 weeks off are going to still be able to come back, once we're ready for the divisional round, you're going to come back. You're not going to have bad practice habits. You're not going to be rusty for that divisional game. Like who could you trust to not be rusty? I could think of a couple players who I wouldn't trust, and I'm not gonna say him, but his
Steve-O.
name, yeah. I mean, you said it for me.